Morning and half a day. My name is Julian Dendy. I'm a contractor with the Coral Reef Research Foundation in Palau and the Institute of Pacific Islands Forestry in Hilo. And it's my pleasure to share with you this morning a little bit of information on the Forest Inventory Analysis, or the FIA, as well as the Micronesia Challenge terrestrial measures in the Marianas Islands. The FIA, as far as I know, is the world's largest forest monitoring program, and it operates continuously across the continental US, doing monitoring of about 10% of each jurisdiction's forest area per year. And it's a random grid-based sampling approach, which translates into about one forest plot for every 6,000 acres of forest on the mainland. On the island territories and US affiliated Pacific Islands, the forests are measured and monitored about every 10 years. And the sampling intensity has been increased by about 3 times because of the smaller land area. So that translates into about one forest plot for every 2,000 acres of forest. And recently, the Micronesia Challenge terrestrial monitoring effort increased the sampling effort of FIA forest plots within protected areas on Guam, and that translated into about one forest plot for every 222 acres of forest. So you can see in the diagram on the right of what the plot layout looks like. There's 4 subplots, each one with a smaller microplot inside of them. And I will describe a little bit later what is actually measured within that. On Rota, there were 10 forest plots that were sampled, which are indicated by the orange color in this figure here. And you can tell by the fact that one is out in the ocean, or 2 are out in the ocean, that the plot locations are inexact. They're deliberately fuzzed or misplaced slightly to protect landowner information and the integrity of the inventory data. Here you can see Saipan, where 16 plots were sampled. And here's Tinian, which had 11 plots. And then Guam, you can see in the red outline of protected areas over the island. And on the southern part, you can also see important watersheds, it was decided to increase the sampling intensity within those watersheds as well as the protected areas. So you can see that the normal FIA plots are rather uniformly distributed across the island, and then inside the protected areas, there's a greater density of plots, reflecting the greater effort of monitoring in those areas, which took place in the Micronesia Challenge. Here you can see the FIA plot layout again. And so over the entire plot area, forest disturbance is measured, as well as canopy cover. Larger trees are measured within subplots, and smaller trees, tree seedlings and saplings, are measured within the microplots. All trees are identified to species. Tree damage is also estimated for every tree. The presence of any invasive species is recorded regardless of how small the area that it covers. For all other species that are not invasive, the 4 most common species that cover at least 4% of subplot area among 4 growth habits are recorded, and a bunch of other things are recorded as well. In the Micronesia Challenge, they selected a group of terrestrial measures in an effort to indicate the condition of forest within protected areas in particular. And those measures which they chose were human disturbance, forest cover, tree abundance, species diversity, forest structure, invasive species, and mangroves. And so recently we did a summary effort of compiling all of the data across Micronesia from the FIA data according to the terrestrial measures decided on by the Micronesia Challenge. So how does the forest in the Marianas measure up in Micronesia according to the terrestrial measure FIA data? As it turns out, the Marianas had the highest overall disturbance to forest, the highest invasive species coverage within forest, the most trees per acre, the smallest trees, and the lowest canopy cover overall. And if you're interested in looking at more of the details, we just published an article in the journal Micronesia. And so here's the link to that article if you want to find some extra details, as well as links to the FIA methodology. So on Guam, we were able to look at differences between plots that are inside protected areas and those important watersheds in the southern half of the island, which we call Micronesia Challenge areas, and all other plots outside of those areas, which we're calling non-Micronesia Challenge areas. And so what we found on Guam was that there was less forest area burned in MC areas, more tree species per plot, better endemic invasive tree species ratio in MC areas. In other words, more endemic species and fewer invasive tree species. There were taller trees in non-Micronesia Challenge areas and more dominant plant species per plot, which we think may be related to the high number of invasive species in Guam. There was more forest area covered by endemic tree seedlings and saplings in MC areas, and less relative forest area with invasive plants present. So overall, generally things were in better condition in those protected areas and important watershed plots on Guam. You can visit this link to explore some of the FIA data as it is organized according to the MC terrestrial measures. It has CNMI and Guam, as well as the other jurisdictions in Micronesia on there. And it also has some PDF summaries of the data, as well as links to protected areas and partners that were involved and so forth. If I may, just going to mention another resource available to you. I was going to talk about this, but I ran out of time to prepare a presentation, but I also do satellite-based wildfire monitoring in Guam and CNMI. And here are the links for these two wildfire apps, which you can use to explore the wildfire data that's been collected since 2016 for Guam and CNMI. And finally, we have a updated FIA report for CNMI, which covers the most recent inventory from 2015 for Rota, Saipan, and Tinian Islands, as well as things that have changed since the first inventory in 2004. Some people, I think, who have been working on the updated forest action plan in CNMI may have seen the previous version of this report, but we had to correct the growth removals and mortality section. So we're hoping to find some CNMI locals or forestry staff who might be interested in doing an external review of the report or providing some sort of feedback, or if anyone's interested in any specific data or details or any questions they would like to address using the FIA database, please don't hesitate to contact me at the following email. Thank you, and happy to take your questions.